Greetings and salutations. Thank you for clicking on the video. In this video, I'm going to take a look at a couple of tools that you can use with SSH to move data around on your local network or back and forth from any machine that you have SSH access to on the internet. We just did a massive podcast where we talked about all things Linux networking. Me and Jeremy O'Connell did the latest Mr. Desktop and Mr. Server, and that was our subject, and it runs almost 3 hours long. And it includes the introduction of a new piece of software called Connect to SSH that Jeremy wrote, and I consulted him as we went along. I was his beta tester and guinea pig and sounding board. And that is a cool piece of software if you administer a lot of machines through SSH. So you definitely want to check that video out. But in this video, I want to take a deep dive into a couple of things that we just talked about a little bit and we didn't really get deeply into. And the first one is SFTP, which is Secure File Transfer Protocol. If you've been around computers for any length of time, you know about FTP. There are FTP servers on the web that you can log into, you can download stuff from, and you can use an FTP client on your desktop like FileZilla to do that. FTP is cool, but FTP is insecure. So SFTP adds a level of security. Everything that you transfer back and forth is encrypted, and you don't need to have a special server running on a machine to use it, just SSH. So if you already have SSH access, then you have SFTP access, whereas with FTP, the machine that you're going to has to have a FTP server running. So let's go ahead and jump into that. I'm going to show you how I use it. This is an oldie but a goodie, gang. It's an old tool. It's been around for a long time, and most Linux distributions have it baked right in. Go ahead and jump into a machine here. I'm going to clear the screen by pressing Control and L. And now we know we're in the SFTP program because the prompt says SFTP. Pretty cool. Okay, so what can we do here? Well, let's list the storage, and this shows us the folders on the remote machine that we can have access to, and in this case it's my home folder. And if I want to list the storage on the local machine, then I use LLS for local list storage, and that shows me what's in the local machine that I'm connecting to the remote machine from. And if you ever get lost, you can just use PWD. So the present working directory that we are on the remote machine is home/Joe, and we can also look at LPWD, and that shows us our local working directory. That's the machine that we're connecting from. So if you ever get lost, you can put those commands in and you know what you're doing. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to LCD, which is local change directory, and we're going to go into downloads. So anything that we get off the remote machine, I'm going to put into downloads. And let's jump into the pictures folder on the remote machine. And I'm typing a little bit and then using tab to autocomplete. So that works fine in the SFTP program. And we'll list the storage in my pictures folder, and you see down there toward the bottom I've got a file that is Windows 7 wallpaper, and that's the wallpaper I've had since I was running Windows 7, so that's been around for quite some time. Let's grab that file and get it and put it in our local downloads folder. So I use get, and I start typing the name of the file, and I autocomplete, and there we go. And it pulled it down. So if I do a LLS, you'll see that now I have that file in the local directory. So that's how it works. If you want to go grab files, you can do that. Now, if you want to grab a whole bunch of files, like a directory, I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's go to Documents on the remote machine. And now I'm going to list the storage once again. I have a whole bunch of stuff up here. Of course, you can always scroll up to look at it. I'm going to grab a folder in here, and all you do is use get, and then you use the R flag, which makes it recursive. Give it the name of your local folder. Oop, type that incorrectly, dummy. Just put in bash, that should be enough, and there it goes. Now I'm going to go get that, and I'm going to download it to the local machine. There's not much stuff in here, it's just a bunch of scripts and things, so it doesn't take long. And now it is on my local machine. It's right here. Okay. Now I want to LLS. Okay, so we've got our stuff. You can see that it came down and downloaded that. Pretty cool, huh? So you can actually put files somewhere else if you want to. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to go into, let's see, what directory? Well, let's get back up to the top directory. And we're going to jump into music. And then I'm going to put that Windows 7 picture in music. And there it goes. It went up there. Now, so you get an idea of how that works. And if you have access and permission to do so, you can also remove files from the local machine. So you could do, or rather the remote machine, so you could do RM Windows, and then if I hit enter it would remove the file. But I'm not going to do that because I'll fix that a little bit later in the video and you'll see what I'm talking about. So that's the basics of SFTP. What is really cool about it is that as long as you have access to the account, you have access to the files. So let's go ahead and get out of this. And there's two ways to do that. I could type in bye, and if I do that, it will exit the program. Or I can type exit, and it just puts me right back to my prompt. So that's pretty cool. So let's use SFTP in a slightly different way, and here's where it becomes very useful. So I'm sitting here and I have to jump into a machine, and I'm going to jump into another account. This is not one that I own. So now I'm going to issue the command, and this time I'm going to jump into Cindy's account. And Cindy at 192.168.0.17. And I have to put in her password. I don't have keys set up on her account. And now I'm in her home directory, so we can list the storage there. So let's go to downloads here. And we'll list the storage and downloads. You see there's a copy of her resume in there. Okay. So let's say that I need to grab that copy of the resume. So I'm going to LCD to downloads. So we put everything in the downloads folder. Now I'm going to get that resume. And there it is. Now I have it on the local thing. I can also add files to any place within her account here. So if for some reason she's working on something and she says, hey, do you have this picture? I don't have it. Then I can jump in there, and then I could use the put command to just grab the picture and throw it on her desktop. She's sitting there at the computer and it just shows up. So that's pretty cool. So another thing about SFTP that's nice is that it resolves file permissions. So I went and grabbed Cynthia's resume, and make sure I have it. Let's switch to downloads because I've just gotten out of the SFTP program. So let us list the storage, and you see there it is. If I do ls and I want to tell it to do a long listing, you'll see that those files belong to me. I'm the owner, and it preserves the permissions that were set on that file, but I have ownership of the file, so it resolves that. So if I'm grabbing from Cindy's stuff, it's going to come, and the copy that I have is going to be belonging to me and vice versa. So if I put a file on Cindy's desktop, it automatically becomes hers. Very cool thing to keep in mind. So that is SFTP in a nutshell. It is a very, very neat little program that does a lot of very groovy things. So let's clear the screen, get back to the home directory. The next thing that I want to show you is how to use the rsync command and how to put the rsync command to use. Rsync we went into in some detail because it's a very powerful command. Rsync will allow you to move big, huge chunks of data, entire directories full of stuff, even like a whole hard drive full of stuff across a network. And what I wanted to show you about it was how you can use it in a script. So let me go through this script that I wrote and I'll explain what it does. Now, what I want to do is I want to sync all of the data that are in the data folders on this machine with all of the remote machines on my network, so that when I go to that machine, I'm going to have the same data in there. And this is kind of like a backup thing for me. It's like I don't really use the other machines all that much, but I like to keep the data mirrored. Let's say that my main machine just dies. If I have to start working with another machine, I can just go sit down and everything remains the same as long as everything is nicely synced up. So that's the idea here. And this script does that automatically. So up top here you have the good old whiz bang, crash bang, and then a little note that explains what it does. This line here sets a variable, and the variable is an argument to the command. So in Linux, that is $ and 1. So anytime that you have a script and you want to set an argument to it, you can use that as a variable and then insert it. So here we have the rsync command right here, the first one, that syncs a directory called audio. So we're looking at that line right there. And you'll see that we have most of the IP address, and then for the last digits, it inserts the variable right there. So when I launch this command, then I can just put in the number of the computer. So if that IP address should change, I change machines or get a new machine, I can still use this script to sync everything up. Matter of fact, I could spin up a new machine, sit it over in the corner, and then run this script, and it would take all of the main data that I like to keep synced and dump it over on that machine. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so the rsync command here is set up to I'll just go through here real quick and tell you what it is. Actually, let's jump over here to a terminal. Be a little bit more easy to understand. So let us say that I wanted to sync the data between the pictures folder on this machine and on another machine. So I'll show you how to do this manually. So I'm going to do rsync, of course. And then I'm going to give it the attribute A, which means that it's going to archive everything. It'll preserve all the file permissions, timestamps, everything in the file. The next one that I want to put in here is V for verbose, so as it runs I can see what it's doing. And then the last one I'm going to use is Z, and the Z actually compresses the file before it sends it out over the network, and then it decompresses it on the machine on the other end, and that will make better use of the bandwidth. That's optional. If you have a really, really fast network, you're not doing it over Wi-Fi or something like that, and you're not doing a whole lot of data, then you don't need that. But if you're going to be transferring a lot of stuff, that's a good thing to use. It does slow the process down just a little bit because it has to take time to compress the data on the machine it's sending from and then decompress on the machine that's getting the data. But if you have a slower network, it helps a lot too. So there you go. Next thing we need to do is put in a command that will tell rsync to delete any old files or files that have changed. And that one you have to put in long, because that's a dangerous command. Be careful with that. because if you don't want the stuff in the remote machine's directory to be deleted and you put this in there, it's going away anyway. Okay, so now we have to tell Rsync what we're working with. So we're just going to do pictures, and then we're going to do pictures on a remote machine. So that would be 192.168.0.17. The colon is important. And the other thing to keep in mind here are these backslashes. Very important that if you're syncing a folder and you want it to be exact on the other end, then you'll need to make sure that those backslashes are there. That tells Rsync, take all the data that's in this folder and put it in the other folder. If I didn't have a backslash, let's say in pictures, the first one here, then what Rsync would do is take the whole folder and dump it in the folder pictures on the other end. So we'd end up with another folder in there called pictures. So be careful with that. So we can just turn this loose and it's going to make the connection and it's going to see what's going on. And there's nothing to change, so it moved really, really fast. If there were files in there that were different, well, there you go. So that's how to do it for one directory. So what I did was make this script so I could do it for a whole bunch of directories and get a little output on the screen. So we're syncing all the main data directories that I keep. So let's go ahead and run the command and you can see what it does in action. And I call it sync it. So it would help if I would spell that correctly. Okay, that's right. And we're going to tell it that we want to sync all of those directories on the machine with the IP address that ends with 17, because that's the one we've been working with. So now I will turn it loose, and it's going to go through, and it's going to make sure that everything is synced up. And you'll notice here that Rsync deleted that file that we left in the music folder. We threw that picture in there while we were playing with SFTP. So that is all straight. And also it should have moved another file up here in documents that I had deleted. There it is, French onion soup. When I was fooling around with this earlier and doing tests for the video, I deleted that file from the remote machine. So now I know that all of those folders are synced up. And I just chose the name Sync It because, I don't know, it sounded good to me at the time. You could call yours anything you wanted to if you wanted to write a script like this. And if you want to learn more about writing scripts, I have videos up about the basics of doing that as well. Look at my Bash series. I have some scripting videos in there as well. So I just wanted to show you those two little tools and how you could use them and put them to good use, because I think that they really are the rock stars of the entire suite of tools that work with SSH. And of course there's SFTP, where you can mount up file systems. You can do that as well and drag and drop, and check out that Mr. Desktop and Mr. Server video. And that video is getting a lot of really good response, which is pretty awesome, because we worked for quite some time on putting that together, gang. I think it's going to be a big help to the Linux community, because these tools that work with SSH, like SFTP, Rsync, they are under-documented, and especially SSHFS, which is where you can use SSH to set up you can mount a remote machine's drive or folder in a local folder or directory, and that's really under-documented. Very powerful tools, so do check that one out as well. Also, be sure and check out freedompenguin.com and check out Easy Linux on the web. Check out Easy Linux on Facebook as well, and check out the CyberWeb Solutions website. That is Jeremy O'Connell's website. He does a lot of really cool things you might want to look at. And in the description for the video, the Mr. Desktop and Mr. Server, there's a link to that page with the Connect to SSH program on it as well. And the only bad thing about that video, I don't know whether I mentioned this earlier in this video or not, was that we recorded it during the inauguration. So when President Trump was getting sworn in, we were actually recording that. And I don't live too far away from Washington, D.C., so my internet was slow that day, and I had some audio issues that were not under my local control. So if you watch that video, you might notice that it's only me. I break up. Jeremy, who is in Atlanta, Georgia, didn't have a problem, but I did, and it was just streaming everything up to Google so we could do the Google Hangout to record the video. A lot of folks were using the internet while we were doing that. So anyway, thank you for watching, gang. We'll do it again soon. Talk to you later.